This is Duke University.
Okay, so just as an addition, we are going to be recording this session for future use, just so you're aware. But tonight we're going to be talking about building and strengthening your career community and connections through networking. So we will spend a fair amount of time talking about different ways to do that and what that looks like. So like I said, if you have any questions as we go through, please let me know in the chat. Okay, so has anybody heard of the hidden job market? Yes or no? Drop it in the chat real quick. Okay, so we're mostly no's at this point. All right, very good. So anybody want to take a guess at what they think the hidden job market is? Drop that in the chat. Okay, fair enough. The hidden job market is actually jobs that are never posted online. So it's a concept that, yes, thank you, Hannah, jobs that are available only by recommendation or knowing someone. Yeah, very similar. So because these jobs aren't posted online, you would need some sort of recommendation from someone, or they would pass your resume on to someone they know who's hiring. So the best way to get connected to the hidden job market is through networking. But before I get into that, I do have a quick scale for you. So 1 to 5, throw it in the chat. How confident do you feel about tapping into the hidden job market? 1, not so confident. 5, super confident. Okay. All right. Okay, so hopefully I will ask this question again, or a similar version of this question again at the end of the session. So hopefully you'll leave with some helpful tips for that. Next question, how confident are you in networking in general? 1 to 5 in the chat. Okay, very good. So like I said before, breaking into the hidden job market is really using networking to navigate that. So meeting new people, retaining existing contacts, things like that. So we will focus tonight on how to go about doing that. And again, if you have questions along the way, please throw them in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to run through some quick questions. You don't need to put these in the chat, but if you have like a Word doc or a text or a note up on your laptop, or even if you have just a piece of paper right next to you, I want you to quickly jot down some of these questions or the answers to these questions. So I'm going to give you probably about 30 seconds each, so it will be fairly quick. All right, everybody ready? Let's do this. Okay, so first question. Thinking about your network, take 30 seconds to list 3 to 5 people that are currently in your career network. 30 seconds. Okay, next question. Take about 30 seconds to jot down at least one career goal that you have for yourself. I know this one might be a little bit tougher if you haven't thought about this in particular, but 30 seconds to jot down what you've got. Okay, next up, 30 seconds to list 3 to 5 ideal companies or people that you would like to network with. Okay, so wrap up your 3 to 5 and throw in the chat, how did you do? Scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not so great, these were really hard to answer, to 5 being pretty good. You're feeling good about your responses and the direction you're going in, 1 to 5. Nice. Okay, wonderful. Solid 3s and 4s. That's awesome. Nice job. These are not easy questions, so I got to give you a shout out for coming in at 3s and 4s. So uh, great work there. We're going to get into sort of breaking down the networking process, and we're going to go through what I sort of call like a networking inventory. And what I'm going to do throughout that time is sort of break down different layers of the network, of your potential network, but then also pose some questions to help you take sort of an inventory of what you've got and where you are. And so some of the questions that you're going to see on the screen, you don't need to respond to. You don't necessarily need to write anything down for them, but they're definitely something that you can reference later if you like. So feel free to take screenshots of the inventory slides, or if you want the PowerPoint after this, I'd be happy to email it to you. So let me know that too. And again, as we get going, just pop your questions in the chat. Okay, so that first question was about your current network. So let's talk about who's currently in your network. When you look at that list of people, you may have listed family members, friends, other peers, friends of friends, friends of your family, but you might have also thought of like different neighbors, faculty, potentially even PIs or grad advisors if you're involved in research, or other supervisors that are within your career network. So these are people that you currently know and in some way are supporting your career goals, or that you talk to from time to time or get information from time to time about your career development or your career focus. So here are some questions to consider as you're taking that inventory of your current network. Do your current contacts meet your interests and career goals that we've previously brainstormed, or you might even brainstorm a little bit more or have your own thoughts about? So how do they align? You may have some that are specific to certain industries or certain job roles or professions, but you also might have some that connect to just hobbies or other interests that you previously had that you still are involved in, right? So you can have some overlapping sections within your current network, but it's great to be able to identify who these people are and sort of how they connect to your career goals and interests, which leads us to the next question of sort of what gaps do you have there? So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go through. But if you can identify the gaps that you have, so based on your career goals, looking at your current network, where are the areas that you want to fill in and meet new people? That can be really helpful to guiding you to research new contacts. And then the bonus question here is, how are you organizing this information? I know for me personally, it probably took me, I don't know, at least until graduate school. So probably like 6 or 7 years into my like education to say, oh, I should probably make a spreadsheet to help me organize these people and when I've contacted them. So if you don't have a way to organize this information, I highly recommend that you think about which sort of setup would make the most sense for you and your organizational preference. I'm a huge fan of an Excel spreadsheet, but Google Sheets are great. You might like lists over spreadsheets. So maybe a table in a Word doc works for you. So however it makes the most sense, think about how it's organized so you can reference it easily. Any questions so far? Okay. So how do you think about new connections? Of course, you can consider the gaps based on your goals and interests in your current network. But there's also online events that we offer through the Career Center or that you might have access to through other areas of Duke that will introduce you to new people. And really, when you go to those events, it can be a little awkward, especially being online now where we would normally network in person. It's all virtual. So really thinking about what your end goal is at those events, who you want to meet, why you want to meet them, what you want them to know about you in terms of like preparing for those events. And that also includes like your elevator pitch to say really quickly to introduce yourself before asking any questions or things like that. And that includes things like this, where you're maybe on a chat and you want to get the conversation going. You could throw into the chat who you are and where you're from. And yes, Alina, I will answer your question in just a second. Thank you. Where you're from and pose a question to everyone else. So those are great ways to get involved in those events. And then of course online resources like LinkedIn and the Duke Alumni Directory, which I'll show you in just a second. But I do want to answer Alina's question, or Elena, your question. So could you please share a good way to organize our connections? What information do you keep track of? So I recommend an Excel spreadsheet. That's my go-to. But really any way that works for you is best, but I would consider these these variables to keep track of. So whatever makes sense in order for you to sort of keep track of this info. The person's name, the company or organization that they work for, their email or phone. You may just have one or you might have both, doesn't matter. If you have their mailing address, that's also helpful, but not required. Lots of times you would only know that if you've gotten their business card from them. So their name, company, organization, and their contact info. And then you want to keep track of certain other variables. So you might want to know if they're a Duke alum. So you could have like a check mark in that box or like a yes, no in that box. You might want to know when you first met them and how. So just a little note to remind yourself what you discussed when you first met and the event that you're at when you first met, or how you have that mutual connection. And then you might also want to have columns that detail, like you sent them an email on this date, you followed up on this date, you had coffee, or you met with them via Zoom on this date, just to keep track. And especially if it's a contact that you want to keep long term, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you do want to set up some sort of like regular schedule to reach out to them, usually, once a month or every 6 weeks. And so you'd want this spreadsheet to build in dates and times that you reached out and what you discussed, just to remind yourself as you keep track of things. So let me know if you have additional questions about that as we move forward. So for right now, I'm going to switch over to show you LinkedIn and the Duke Alumni Directory. Sure thing. Has everybody used the LinkedIn or the Alumni Directory before? Okay, I'm getting some no's. Okay, so this will be fun. All right, let me share this with you. Actually, I gotta pull it up first. Here we go. Okay. All right, so you should be able to see my LinkedIn screen. Okay, so this is my profile on LinkedIn, and the first thing you want to do is search for Duke University. I obviously searched for it a lot, so it's popped up here. But you can put it in the search box and make sure you're following Duke University, just so you can easily find them and keep up with what they've got going on. But on the left-hand side here is the alumni feature. Now, this feature is pretty cool. There's just under 110,000 alumni, and of course, this is all self-report, so keep that in mind. This is definitely something that, anybody who's said Duke University on their profile is probably going to be in this list. So you might see like current classmates even on this list. But you can quickly view where people live, where they work, so you can see specific companies, which is really helpful, what they do. So just like general job type, and even their major while they were at Duke. And then of course you can also search by keyword or company. So does anybody have something they want to search just to see what it looks like on the alumni feature? You can throw it in the chat if you like. Okay. Well, I will check. Let's do arts. That's really broad, but we'll start broad on our search. Okay, so now we've got about 27,000 alum here. So we can even start to narrow it down by location. So maybe I'm thinking about moving to Los Angeles, so I'm gonna choose LA. And now I can start to see where they work. Okay, that's really interesting. There's a couple of people at Netflix. That's really cool. But let's see if you just want to see who's showing up here. So now you've got lots of different options. You're seeing some different profiles. I'm just gonna choose one. I'm gonna try to choose a third connection. So just to show you, I don't know who Jessica is. We're not really connected. We're 3 degrees away. And what I'm going to do is just look at her profile. So I want to see sort of what she's done. She worked in architecture. Now she's an associate for regional leader for arts and culture. So it's not super clear what she's doing. But again, this is self-report, so it's going to be hit or miss. But we can see what she studied at Duke and what she did since then. So it sounds like she's really into architecture as her primary focus, with a background in art and art history. So let's just say that you reviewed her profile and you thought, oh, this is really cool. she is basically doing what I want to do. What you can do is you can click the connect button here, or if you don't see a connect button and you just see this locked message, just hit more and connect will show up on this side. So just keep that in mind. You don't necessarily have to have like LinkedIn Premium or something like that to connect with her. But when you hit connect, it's going to tell you to that your invite has been sent, and it's going to ask you if you want to put a custom message in. And the answer is yes, you will want to put a custom message in there. So let me show you. Any questions so far about this feature? It's pretty cool. I mean, you could probably spend quite some time digging around on here. But let me show you kind of an example outreach for a new contact. So if you are messaging on LinkedIn or the alumni directory that I'll show you in a second, here's a great example of sort of like a cold outreach for this new person. So basically you're telling the person how you found their info, and who you are and what your commonality is. So you can see in this example, they've done that in the first two sentences. The third sentence, it really gets to this ask of, I would like to talk to you. I'd like to learn more about your career path, how you got to where you are. And then the second shorter paragraph is the specific time frame. It's very helpful to give a time frame or suggest a date just so the person knows they're not going to be spending an hour with you, that you're valuing their time. So anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes is a good request. And of course, you can do by phone or video chat, and you can even suggest some dates and basically sign off with your name. So the general flow of things is who you are, how you found them, your common interests, and their requests to meet and talk. Any questions about that? Oh, Hannah, that's a great question. So when we're cold emailing, what subject should we use? So if you're going through LinkedIn, it's going to have like the standard subject already. But if you're doing through email, you can go about this a couple of different ways. You can do something like hello/introduction. You can do something like informational interview questions, or because that's sort of like technically what this process is called, is informational interviewing. You could also say like introduction slash Duke student or Duke alum. So you have some flexibility, and I also think it probably depends on like your own style and what you want to put out there. There's not necessarily a standard subject, but my personal preference is to sort of let them know upfront what you're going for. And so an introduction is really sort of the phrase that I land on most of the time. Okay, so how about the alumni directory? Sure thing. Anybody use the alumni directory before? Okay, cool. 2 new resources in one presentation. Let's share that screen. Okay. So we're going to move on from LinkedIn. So this is the alumni.duke.edu page. And up here, sort of the middle icon to the right is the alumni directory. It may ask you to log in. It remembers me because I'm on here a lot, but if it does, it's just your net ID. But you can see it's kind of similar to LinkedIn in that it's self-reported profiles. Some are going to be more filled out than others. And Darius even has a photo, which is great, right? Because we know that if you have a photo, I'm more likely to click on Darius's profile than somebody else's. You're also going to notice like Catalina has the contact me about here. So she's saying, yes, please reach out to me for career advice, networking, things like that. Please be respectful of what people ask you to contact them about, just because they've taken the time to say like, yes, I'm available for these specific things. But let me show you how to sort through. About is, you can search the contact me about. So you could go broad, you could go networking, career advice here. The professional section includes industry, which I think is a really good one, because it keeps you broad, but it narrows you into like that general area of interest. If you have a particular company in mind, that's always great. Current job title. Job titles are nice, but they change frequently. And you can also have 5 people doing essentially the same job, but with all a different job title. So that one gets a little hairier, but it's totally up to you. And then of course you can choose things specific to Duke, like majors or class year. And then location is always helpful. So we saw Netflix earlier, so I'm just gonna type in Netflix here, and then I'll hit search at the bottom and see what comes up. Okay, so we got 21 people. That's more than I thought. That's really cool. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the first one, Carmen. She graduated in 2010. So you can sort of see what the profile looks like. And she said, please contact me about career advice. So that's really cool. So you can get sort of an overview of her time at Duke and what she studied, student activities. This is really great if you happen to live in the same residence hall or are part of the same student organizations. That's great to include in that like cold email of some of the things that you have in common. Of course, we see her industry, but we can also see some like full experience. Oh, cool. She's worked on a lot of awesome stuff. And it sounds like it looks like she's done a great job filling out her profile too, because we're getting lots of info. And then when you click on My Duke, you can see all the groups that she was a part of at Duke. So if you like her profile, if you think her experience is cool and aligns with what you hope to do, these also might be groups of interest, especially like Demon, if you're interested in the entertainment and arts. So let's say you want to contact her, you just click on the green contact button and the system will walk you through how to set up your response to Carmen, and it will send it to her for you. So I usually recommend using the alumni directory and LinkedIn in tandem, because if you find somebody on LinkedIn, you can double check it with the directory and vice versa. So like if you really like Carmen's profile and her work experience, you could then go to LinkedIn and see if you could find her. I do think though, if you can, people check LinkedIn sporadically, right? Like some people are on it all the time, and then some people might get a message and it can sit for like weeks. Like I have done that and felt pretty embarrassed by it. So if you're worried about like, where do I send it to? If they show up in the alumni directory, I would say give it a go through the alumni directory first, but be prepared to be persistent in your outreach. Even when there's not a pandemic happening across the world, we usually recommend 3 attempts at connecting with someone before you remove them from your list. So if you reach out to Carmen through a cold email and you wait a week and a half, 2 weeks, you don't hear back, try again. Same deal, week and a half, 2 weeks, you wait. If you don't hear back, try a third time. And you don't have to rewrite the email every time. You can simply just say, I'm just following up on my original email below. I would still very much like to talk with you if you have the time. So once you do that 3 times, if you haven't heard back, maybe on your Excel spreadsheet, however you're organizing it, if you have a tab for maybe like people you haven't heard from, whatever creative way you want to word that, you could put them there. So you could keep her name, you could keep her contact info, because it might be that in a couple months time you want to try again, and that's fine too. So I would definitely say don't like totally remove her from your spreadsheet. Just move her away from your active list. So any questions or thoughts so far? Okay, are you feeling like you're getting the information that you came for? This is helpful. Okay, great. Very good. So I'm going to head back to the PowerPoint. And let's go back. So again, to this inventory, questions to consider. I have here again the bonus of keeping track of your outreach. Maybe it shouldn't be a bonus. Maybe that should just be a thing that you do. But again, consider the gaps that you have in your career goals. So being able to be kind of strategic about who you're reaching out to. And so if you have ideas of gaps, if you know some of your career goals, that can help you be strategic in planning your search, and also who you decide to reach out to. I know lots of times, depending on the industry, it can feel like it's quantity over quality. Like it's just a race to sort of have as many people in your network as possible. But I also think that it's okay and smart to be strategic. And so if you shift to quality over quantity, I think that's super efficient and smart, and absolutely okay to do, especially if you're a person that's not super fond of networking. It will make it less painful. But then also think about, is this an opportunity to reconnect with people in your current network? So you might think of somebody from a year or so ago that you haven't checked back in with, but you know that you had a great conversation with them before, your interests still align, so you could reach back out to them. And it's not like a totally new cold email because you can reference your previous connection, but it's sort of what you might hear as like warming back up that previous connection. And it's something as simple as, I hope this email finds you well. I was recently thinking of you when I read this article or finished up this class, and I wanted to reach back out. And then of course, continue with the usual format. So there's a question: how would you suggest making someone you already know, like a friend's parent, a career connection without being awkward? That's a really good question. And in fact, through the Career Center, we've collected some data on this, and friends and / family are 2 of the top ways to build your network, and places that other Duke students are reporting that they go to for career information. So it might feel awkward, but know that the data that we've collected says that's actually really common, and maybe less awkward than you think. But I would say approach your friend and say, hey, I'm really thinking about working in pharmaceuticals, and I remember your dad saying that he does too. Do you think that you could connect me with your dad? I just have some questions about what the day-to-day looks like and what getting a career in that area would be like. And for the most part, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be really cool about it, and they'll be like, yeah, sure, I'll text him or whatever. So it's very rare that somebody comes back to me and says, I got a no in regards to help on networking. So I would go through your friend and just be upfront. And the cool part about it is, since you already know them, you don't, like, some of the formalities that you would usually have to follow with a cold email, you don't necessarily have, because you can just say, hey, I remember your parent said that they did this. Do you think I could chat with them? So hope that helps. Okay, continuing on. One of the questions was identifying your career goal, and that can be kind of scary, and it can be a hard question, right? All of these are difficult questions, but especially this one. So know that what you wrote down tonight is not gonna like follow you forever. All of these things can change and should change. But if you're thinking about, well, what are my career goals? I've never thought of that before. Here are some things that you can do that are reflection oriented. And I think that, part of a goal setting, especially like with careers and interests, is reflection and trying to figure out what it is you like and don't like. And so some ways to do that are talking with somebody you trust, like I mentioned, like peers, friends, family are some of the number one groups of people that Duke students go to. Journaling is really helpful if you just like dumping all your thoughts onto paper and then sorting through them. Don't limit yourself when you're writing, set the timer for 20-25 minutes and just go and write about your career, write about the classes, whatever comes to mind related to your career, and then you can sort through it. After that, I would say even wait like a day or two and then come back to what you wrote. Making lists, a lot of people like to make lists, and it can be really helpful and calming. You can do pro-con lists. You can write down lists of all the things that you really enjoy, lists of things that you don't want to do. You can have multiple lists going at once. So, and also researching is very helpful. If you come up with a question as you're doing these things, research it and continue to reflect on it. Mind maps are really helpful. They're basically like a bubble map where maybe you put an area of interest in the center, and going out of the center, you can identify the things that you like about it, potential jobs, people so you can create, as big or as small of a bubble map around that area of interest. And that can show you, how much you know about an interest area or profession. It can also help guide you to end goals or identify gaps too. And then of course you can always make an appointment with the Career Center. We are here by Zoom all summer long, and we also do drop-in appointments. Those are a little bit quicker, like 15 minutes, but if you're just curious about the Career Center in general, that's a good way to check it out. So don't be afraid to make an appointment as well. So, any questions about that? Okay. So, getting into this idea of like long-term connections, how do you stay connected with somebody? And I think this is also something that I hear a lot of students saying, this is the hardest part because I already asked them all my questions. And so how am I supposed to reach back out? What do I say? Remember that the priority for networking is the relationship. It's always relationship focused first. Getting a job or passing along your resume is the positive consequence. It's secondary to the relationship, which I know sounds crazy, but at some point in the relationship, oftentimes in the first conversation that you have, they'll say, well, enough about me. What about you? That's your window of opportunity to say, well, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for an internship. And, here's particularly what I'm interested in, right? But if you keep the relationship focused, it makes it so much easier than feeling like you're constantly asking for something or like it's not a two-way street, right? So one of the first ways to do this is within 24 hours of meeting someone, send them a thank you email. If you really connected with them and so you already know in your mind or on your spreadsheet, you're going to move them to a long-term connection, then you want to ask them in the thank you, would you be open to me reaching out as questions come up? So in this example, this student has said, I want to continue to talk to Miss Park and I want to maintain a long-term connection with her. So you're opening up the door by saying, can I reach back out again in the future? Again, 9 times out of 10, the person's going to respond and say, absolutely, it was great to meet with you. Please do feel free to follow up anytime. So if not, if you meet with somebody and you're thinking, no, they're not a long-term connection, send the same email, just don't ask that last question. Thank you so much for encouraging me. I really appreciate your time. Sincerely, Catherine. So that's the first thing to do. The second thing to do is continue some sort of follow-up schedule. Now, if you're actively job searching or internship searching, I would say anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks is great. If not, and they're just someone that you want to continue to connect with, once you've got a job or you're a new professional, right? Then I would say every 6 months. So you kind of want to think about how you want to set up this sort of schedule. Some people say, okay, at the end of each semester, I'm going to reach out to my contacts. Or if you're actively searching and you want to go every 4 to 6 weeks, just set a calendar reminder or a reminder on your phone. But let's talk about what you might include in some of these. So a long-term outreach email might look something like this. So again, a common nicety to open the email. And you're sharing some information and update about yourself. I'm heading into my senior year. And now you're giving an update on sort of the career content, because that's your relationship is around your career path and the shared interests and professions. So I'm still researching, making decisions. But I discovered this awesome software tool that essentially aligns with our shared interests. And I wanted to share that with you. And then at the end, there's an ask. So if you don't need the ask, you don't have to put it, but this is just a way to show you how to add it in there if you do want to meet with them again. So I'd love to chat in the coming weeks. Would you be open to a 20 to 30-minute call? So I've gotten emails like this that are sometimes longer, depending on all the things that are going on in that person's life. I've also gotten emails that are a bit shorter, that are more like, look at this really cool thing that I did. And it's a link to an article. And, the sign off is something like, hope you're doing well, I'll talk with you soon, right? And that's really enough. That's all it has to be. So you have some options here. And again, think about your own style and your own personality and the message and story that you want to put out there. So in terms of long-term outreach, we're looking at a thank you within 24 hours. We're looking at continued updates and other follow-ups based on the schedule that you create, 4 to 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year, depending on where you are in the job search and where you sort of categorize that contact. So getting to the inventory part of this, who did I genuinely connect with and what about? Now this could go in your spreadsheet. The about what could be a variable that you keep track of. And you could even have another tab on your spreadsheet that is long-term connections or long-term contacts or something like that. So you don't have to follow up with everyone. And I think this next question is a really good one because again, it gets to this idea of like quantity over quality. There are times in your network that you can let people go. It is okay. They helped you out. They were a great contact and a listening ear at a certain time, and your interests have changed or your needs within the profession have changed. It's totally okay not to continue a follow-up. Just make sure you send that thank you within 24 hours, right? And if you're reviewing your current network, you can ask yourself that same question. And then again, how are you going to keep track of your follow-ups, which we have already sort of addressed in terms of like a spreadsheet and variables. So another question on what would be a good message to send to somebody with whom you have not talked for more than 3 years? That's a really good question. I've had people like this in my own career life and trajectory. And I think the biggest thing is some of the content's going to be the same, right? You're going to have sort of a reintroduction. You're going to want to remind them how you were connected 3 years ago. And you're going to want to tell them why you're reaching out again now. But I think the biggest thing is not that there's like some magic wording for that, but that it's a genuine interest in them and where they are and what they're doing now, and a genuine interest in wanting to reignite the relationship part of the networking, right? So if it feels like you're forcing the conversation, or like you're putting too much emphasis on an ask of will you share my resume, or do you have job opportunities, I would say try to avoid that as much as possible. Put the emphasis on a genuine connection or reconnection with this person. And you can even say, last we talked, parentheses, about 3 years ago, you were doing this really amazing thing. How is that working out for you? Are you still doing that? What does that look like now? I have thought of you and am excited to catch up if you have the time. So I think just being genuine in your interest in them and their career and where they are right now could really go a long way. I think you'd be surprised how people will respond and be excited to hear from you. So yeah. Other questions so far? Okay. Sure thing. We just have a couple of minutes left. So this isn't the last call for questions, but it is one more call for questions. All right, so as promised, well, not quite yet as promised, but I do want you to take some time to think about what your next steps are going to be from here. And if you would like to, I would love to see those in the chat. You can share them with us. We can be your accountability buddies. You wrote it down. We read it. Now you have to do it. So if that's helpful to you, add in the chat what your next steps are in regards to building your career community or reconnecting with people. I'll give you about 30 seconds to just think about it or share in the chat. Okay. All right, so oh, Hannah, thank you. Coming in with the win on the next steps. Using the alumni directory to find more people doing things that I may potentially, yes, that's awesome. That's great. All right, so go ahead and throw in the chat your response to this scale. How confident are you now in tapping into the hidden job market? Go ahead and throw it in the chat, and then I will take some time for more questions. I see we already have another question in the chat. So do the five, great. Oh my gosh, 2 5s, 4, 4. I love it. 3 4s, 2 5. That's huge. That's huge. I feel like that's a solid. I mean, I'm not a math major, but that's at least like 1.5 points more, maybe. Very good. I'm impressed. So let's see, more questions. And this additional resources slide I'll leave up here while I answer any other questions that come in. It's got a link to our career website where we have different guides that will help you out, even one on how to build your LinkedIn profile. But there is a question about when do you follow up if you've reached an alumni. So will you clarify, are you, if you've reached and they've responded and you've chatted, follow up, or if you've reached out and you haven't heard back from them? Oh, okay. So if they have not responded, I would say wait about 2 weeks. In like non-pandemic times, we would say about a week, but I think now during this time, we have to give people more space and patience. And so I think 2 weeks is a good time frame. And don't stress yourself out about rewriting that email. Just hit reply and reference the thread below, and that you're still very much interested in talking with them if they have the time. So I would say 2 weeks. Sure thing. Any other questions as we wrap up here? So I know this is a lot of info, and also I think in my experience, it's safe to say everybody has a slightly different feeling toward networking. You know, some people really love it. Some people have questions about very specific parts of it. Some people can't stand it at all, and sometimes just want to hear me say, "Don't do it." I will never say don't do it, but if you do have more questions about this process, or how to even complete an inventory of your network, or when to let a contact go, or even how to be strategic about your research, and again, like quantity over quality, please let me know. Believe it or not, I am not. I'm one of those awkward networkers myself, and so I'm always happy to talk about that too, and how to get comfortable with networking as best as possible. So thank you for joining me tonight, and like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out, make an appointment through the Career Center. You can do that on Career Connections, which is on the Career Center website. So thanks so much. Have a good night.